listening to the 14th source for all geeky and nerdy news and discussion, which means that you're listening to a podcast.
For all intents and purposes.
I am D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And we are your two overeducated, codependent nerd hosts, bringing you the things that we like to talk about, but filtered through inquisitive and critical lenses. In the episode for Friday, October 7th, 2022. And you know what that means, Andrew? It is spooky season. Officially. Welcome to October.
You know, I just want a tribute to October. There's a video on Twitter I saw. It was kind of like, here's 3 minutes of John Carpenter just explaining to you why he's the best guy. And I gotta say, man, John Carpenter, what a character. This kind of like this idea of like, there's nothing pretentious about him. He's just, he's laying things out there. I mean, like, there's interviews where he's like, oh, what's your writing process? Like, well, I got 6 months, so I spend 4 months fucking around.
Yeah.
You know?
Or like, he's at a Q&A at a con. They're like, so I really love Escape from New York. What happened with Escape from LA? And he just leans over, flips him off and says, fuck you.
Or like, oh, how do you come up with these ideas? Like, you have a bunch of Budweiser.
Yeah. I mean, people say that they don't, pardon the language, that they don't give a fuck. It's like an ethos that people try to live by. I think he's the only person that actually does. Like, he has zero fucks to give, because he says in multiple instances in that video, check the show notes for that link, many times all he wants to do is relax and play video games.
Right. And you know, and he says like, oh, he loves, was one of the quotes that he loves every time they make a new Halloween movie because he gets a check, you know?
Yep.
But at the same time, he also made some really great stuff. Like, it's not that he's like, you know, some hack that's making garbage. Like, he made really, you know, I would say, you know, evocative films. I mean, he made things that people still talk about to this day.
Influential films. That's
the word I was missing.
he paradigm shifted, basically, like, with things like The Thing, with movies like The Thing, like movies like Halloween, right?
Right. I mean, They Live is even maybe not as influential, although in retrospect, boy oh boy, does it hit harder.
Definitely a cultural touchstone, for sure. And it's an impressive career, and the thing is, like, he just swings every time he gets up to bat, and like any like any baseball player, Andrew, you get remembered for the home runs, even though you strike out more often than you actually hit those home runs. I think the metaphor is falling apart, but I'm going to run with it. Like, you could probably make a longer list of movies that you've never seen, or movies that people don't think is very good.
Right.
But the thing is, when he's firing on all cylinders, and he's in it to win it, like, he's on it. And like, I would say, even for the majority of his movies, because I've seen a lot of his movies, even the ones that quote unquote aren't good, there's always something interesting there, because he's interested in what he's making. And just like you can say about maybe teachers you have, or novelists, or musicians, like, even if it's an album or something like that you don't really like, if the artist is like motivated, if they're doing this for a reason, even if it doesn't click with you, you can usually find something to be. You can usually find the interesting thing in it. And I think that's definitely the case with Carpenter. Like, even his quote unquote duds are interesting. For example, Ghosts of Mars. Not a good movie at all. Or what was that other one? I actually enjoyed it, but people don't like. I think it's called John Carpenter's Vampires.
Oh, that one. Yeah, it's weird. Well, that's a good example of. I haven't seen that movie since the 90s, right? Since it came out. But yeah, I mean, he makes a lot of stuff, and there's always things, you're right, about them that, like, hey, even when it's not great, there's still something about it that I appreciate. But again, I also haven't seen like a lot of his movies, right? He makes a lot of movies, and I just like, I didn't even know he made these, you know? Yeah,
I mean, ironically, I just recently rewatched The Thing, as of this recording, yesterday. So Thursday, dear listener, because you're listening live. No, I got a hankering to watch it again. I mean, I always kind of do. And man, it's such an interesting, I think I might have tweeted about it or put this on Facebook. I'm like, it's kind of like Alien and Jaws put together and wrapped with Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness. I'm not saying that's all it is, but like, if you're trying to find, ways to explain it, that's kind of how I would explain it. It's a slow build, like Jaws has, with people talking about the people in the story come from very different backgrounds and are just kind of trying to get away from everything. But of course, the alien thing is just that a base under siege kind of horror story. And then Lovecraft, because At the Mountains of Madness is basically the same story as The Thing, or Who Goes There, the original short story by the name of the author I can't remember. But anyway, it's a good movie. It's a really good movie. Like, it's actually, like, I would say a movie, not just a good horror movie, not a good John Carpenter movie. It's a really good, gory as hell, but good movie. That's the John Carpenter corner.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, what a guy.
And speaking of what I did this week, we're going to, but by rewatching The Thing, we are going to talk about our respective weeks in geek. So I kind of already talked a little bit about something I did this week. We'll come back to the main topic I want to talk about. But Andrew, what did you do this week that you'd like to share?
Oh, I've been so busy. I like you. I can say something in school. Although for me, it's taking classes instead of teaching them. But so I haven't had as much time, and and when you have time in that kind of situation, it's easy to fall back on the things you already like. So, but I don't want to talk about, hey, I just played a lot of the same game again. But I think we mentioned it. We may mention it in passing a week or two ago. I did pick up because I didn't believe it was real. I picked up a game on Steam called actually wait, let me make sure I get the title right. Okay. I picked up a game on Steam, Trombone Champ.
Oh yeah.
This is a game,
Twitter's darling. At least it was for like a week or two, man. Oh boy,
well, that
this
was
game
the thing,
looks
right?
insane.
I saw a video of someone playing it, and I was like, this is not real. First of all, it's a game by developer Holy Wow, which this is their only game, I believe. I think it was like I saw on Twitter, someone tweeted a video of like, oh my God, you need to watch this sound on, right? And it looks like some weird game, and you turn on, and it is like, it's a hoot to watch, right?
Right.
And so I was like, I want to learn more about this. And the weird thing is, it is bizarre. It is so weird because on its face, it is it's like a kind of a rhythm game, right?
Yeah.
With an obnoxious mechanic.
Yeah. Well, it's got the scrolling lanes with like pips in each lane to denote notes you need to hit.
Yeah, and
to be successful.
Right. And the way it works is that you move your mouse up and down, and that's you taking the trombone in and out on the slide, and then you can either press a mouse button or press keys on the keyboard to blow. So it's actually, I have significant difficulty with this game. But then again, I think everybody does.
Yeah, because, I mean, normally rhythm games, they're not played on a keyboard or on a controller. Like, they're usually played through a peripheral, whether it's a plastic guitar, plastic, DJ turntable, or if it's something like Parappa the Rapper or Unjammer Lammy, like the lanes are specifically associated with buttons on the control pad.
So this one is definitely weird. Is in an effort to capture the slide of the trombone, they're like, oh, just you move your mouse up and down. It is, and it's got a bunch of songs that you can play, and they're different songs. A lot of them are just kind of like, there's a lot of, I think, public domain type stuff, right?
Yeah.
There's
it's an indie game. Like Big WoW is not owned by Sony.
Yeah, no, it's indie, all right. So it's like, there's like "Oh Canada," the Star Spangled Banner. I think there's some Sousa song in there, piece rather, and also Zarathustra's in there, which is like the idea that's on the trombone. You're like, wait,
the trombone classic, yeah.
How do you, the trombone classic, also Zarathustra. I mean, and some of them are kind of like, wow, you guys just jammed a trombone into this song, didn't you? And like, yes, they did. But it is fun to watch. It's fun. It's interesting to play. The big thing with it for me, I would say from a play perspective, is if you imagine the game screen, you can see videos of it on the internet. The notes or whatever that you have to play come at you from the right, and when they get to the left, that's like when you actually have to play them. And so as a player, like I focus on the left side of the screen, and I will say that like after about 15 minutes, I actually have to stop. I feel like I start to feel a bit iffy, right? Something about the focus that's required on this tight area of the screen with a lot of the motion that's going on and kind of I think it's not often I say this game made me kind of nauseous, but boy, oh boy, Trombone Champ is on that list.
Would you like a VR experience without the headset?
So that's weird. But the thing is, what I want to talk about is I actually think they kind of describe it as almost like a party game where you just pass it around, like everyone taking their turn making an ass of themselves. Because the one thing is, unlike a lot of rhythm games, whatever you play is what the noise it makes, right? So as you're struggling to get the thing where it needs to be, it's just like you sound like a dying walrus or whatever. And the game has no problem. Like, it's not like bad, it's like nasty, right? Like, it tells you are not doing well.
You sound like Riker after a night at 10 forward.
Right. So that part is weird, but also the game is also kind of bizarre. And you're thinking, wait a second, Andrew, you just described what it seems some sort of party rhythm game where you play a trombone with a mouse. Yeah. How more bizarre could it get?
I've heard about this. This is awesome. But go ahead, yeah.
First of all, like, there's this whole, like, there's kind of like a theme at the beginning that you have to, like, earn enough toots to become the trombone champ. And the idea is that you get toots as you play. And then
that's actual verbiage from the game, right?
They're called toots. They're the units of currency, I guess, you get for playing. And you then use the toots to go to a screen where you buy packs of cards. And you get a random pack of cards, which have, like, they're like, some of them are like trombone cards. Like, here's a notable trombone player, or here's a composer. Except it's a picture of the player or the composer, and then, like, bizarre facts that aren't real. Like, oh, how many hot dogs they could eat. Right? It's like, oh, here's, whoever. Here's, Richard Wagner. Gosh, he just couldn't eat that many hot dogs. And you're like, what? Like, what? And then as you play, like, you get more, and you're like, okay, I'm getting cards to get more, getting more toots to get cards. You start getting duplicates. And you realize it doesn't tell you this, but then you can convert the cards, the duplicates especially, into another resource. Poop. You actually turn it into a currency called poop. And then you use poop to make new cards.
Okay,
like, what? Okay. By the way, some of the cards, I said they were composers. There's also, like, the G clef. Okay, that's a card, right? A baboon. Like, what? Okay. A baboon? Okay. Yeah, this game also's got a thing for baboons. There's a lot of references to baboons. There's facts about baboons. Again, not really true. I think the comparison is that a trombone sounds like a baboon.
Sure.
So it's really just fun, but so bizarre. And I'm like, what am I doing getting toots to buy cards to turn into poop to get other cards? And then you're playing the game and you're on the card and poop screen and you're like, what is this in the corner? And you click on it. And this is a spoiler for those of you who, like, want to find it on your own.
So come back in like a minute, everybody. If you don't want to be spoiled.
A devil appears.
Yep.
A little devil. And he's like, I'm a devil. And he trades you cards. You give him cards, and he gives you other things. And I forget what he gave me, actually. I think he gave me, a new type of trombone to play. You're like, what do you mean a new type of trombone? Well, yeah, because you select your character and your trombone on the selection screen. And I'm like, wait, did I just get... And again, you realize it's just a mechanic to get, like, cosmetic changes. I think they're just cosmetic. But, like, this whole process of getting, like, fake trading cards to trade to a demon to get new resources to, for my aesthetic upgrades, all the while with the understanding that there's clearly something I've not seen yet. Right. This idea that, like, this game clearly has, like, a backstory that, like, I have not engaged with it sufficiently to make the connection between devils, baboons, and trombones.
Yeah, like that's what I've heard. Like the sort of the meta layer to this game, or at least the narrative layer to this game, is like it's that absurdity extended to like almost a level of almost menace, but it's people are saying like it seems like there's a layer that's kind of dark, and like that's compelling in a lot of ways. It's because it's on the surface as a party game.
Right.
It's just about sounding like the most drunk trombone player on the planet. Right.
And it is weird because, like, the devil doesn't tell you to click on this mysterious dark candle in the corner. And when it comes out, there's a certain amount of, like, this isn't, like, silly like the rest of the game. It has menace is not the word I would have used, but, like, that is not an unreasonable word to use.
Right.
And then
it's interesting.
It does get to this idea where you're like, wait, what's this game doing? You know, like, is there an ulterior motive? You know,
right? It reminds me a lot of games I've been seeing lately in the past 3 or 4 years coming out of the indie scene that are really playing with that, for lack of a better word, almost fourth wall, or at least the meta layers of what a game can be. There's the ostensible, surface level kind of game, and then there are some games where they recognize the fact that you are a person playing a game, right? I think of recently games like Inscription. I think Loop Hero might have even had a little bit of that, where it's just... And then there's obviously like the much more sort of serious games like Her Story and the like. It's an interesting trend, and I don't want to call it a trend because I feel like that diminishes it. But as we say a lot, I think some of the most innovative stuff, and in this case in terms of game narratives and how narratives can be given to the player throughout a game, those innovations are happening in the indie scene, right? And like I think the closest we have to something like that would be like Assassin's Creed, but that's just such like an action movie, big studio version of it that it's not actually probing anything particularly interesting for the player, unless they like the story that's being told, right?
Well, and I would say that like imagine if you were playing Assassin's Creed, but it started and you played for hours and hours and hours as an assassin, and then suddenly like 25 hours into it, it's like log out. You're now Desmond, what's his name? And you're like, wait, what the fuck just happened? Like, because my experience with Assassin's Creed is that they're pretty forward with the meta narrative. Like, that's what this feels like. Is like you've been playing it a while, and I mean, I've only been playing it for a couple hours. Trombone Champ, but it felt that way. Where like I played it for a while, like I played most of the songs once, not well, but then for it to suddenly be like burr, 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 what the fuck is this? You know, and then with the feeling that like there's more out there that I'm not going to understand. So yeah,
that sounds cool, right? I mean, except for the part where it makes you sick.
Well, and I've read so I couldn't figure out how to slow down the gameplay. Apparently, there's a way to do it. I'm just dumb, and I think that will be a big help for me because one of the things I think for me the biggest thing is that again as a player I have a problem with the game because to play the game, I really have to focus on just the left side of that, like that line where the things come, and that's somehow like that triggers my sensors or something. I don't know.
Fight or flight.
It's weird because I don't tend like it's one of these things where I don't normally get nauseous doing a lot of stuff, but then there's certain situations where like, I do get like there's some situation that causes me nausea, like being in certain types of cars. But not most cars, just certain types of cars in certain conditions. But then playing Trombone Champ, right? There's something about that.
There's something about the intense focus. Like, I notice I get a little dizzy playing third-person action games and first-person. I think it happens probably more in first-person games where I'm just focusing on like the reticule or just like on what's in front of me. And if I'm turning too fast or if I'm turning the camera too fast, it can really knock me over a little bit.
And it's probably this like because for me first person games are great unless I'm like when they're slow, you know, like I can play Skyrim because I'm just like bebopping around. But if I try to play, I watch people play like Overwatch or whatever, and it's like, I can't. That's not a possible thing.
Right.
So
right.
yeah, I think I can relate to that, and that's probably it's the same thing. It's something to do with like the movement and the whatever. But anyway, so Trombone Champ, what a weird game.
Sounds like it.
And the nice thing is they've actually since its release, they've had several small patches, but they actually already added a new song. I forget what the actual name of it is, but it's what's popularly known as the Mexican Hat Dance.
Oh, sure.
Which again, another public domain classic. But honestly, for a game like this, that's all you need, right?
Right.
You don't need to necessarily have like 30 licensed tracks. Because again, who are you going to license? Like, well, we got all the top trombone songs in, that aren't like ska bands, right? Like, so yeah.
I challenge listeners or anybody out there on the internet to please, and you know what, it's probably already been done. And I hate to keep coming back to this. It's a one-note joke, but I want someone to take video of Riker playing the trombone, but swap out the audio for someone playing Trombone Champ poorly.
There's probably a good way to like cut between the two, where you just get like recycled footage of Riker and the trombone, and then it just keeps going back to nasty.
Right. Or you cut him out against a blue screen or something like that, and insert him over the player character. Because if I remember correctly, like the player character in the Trombone Champ takes up like actually a fairly sizable chunk of the screen.
Yeah.
And he's just wobbling around. Because I think they move according to your mouse movements and stuff like that too, right? Like they're lifting their head or...
Well, I think so. I think the idea is that they're kind of like modeled after how some trombone players move, I think. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think someone on the design team plays a trombone.
Maybe.
I think I saw that somewhere. I don't know. So in any case... that was my that's my very strange week in geek. I feel bad because it's like not bad. It's one of those things where like, I wanna play it more, but I really, really need to temper my engagement with that game.
Right. Self-control. Video games taught you self-control.
No, they are now. But anyway, that was my week in geek, Dan. What about you?
Well, I did already kind of talk about a movie, so I'll talk about one other thing very quickly. I actually don't know if you have seen this as well, but it seems like in our old age, Andrew, we're getting into the sports through TV, but not really. You talked about that. What was it called? It was an NBA. It was about the Lakers, right? That show. Mm-hmm. Was it dramatized? Or was it a documentary?
I think the one I talked about was very dramatized, but
you're right.
I did also watch a documentary. So
yeah. So you're in it to win it. But I'm watching a show about the sports as well, about football. But it's not really about football. I'm talking about I'm watching Ted Lasso on the Apple TV or Apple Plus, whatever it's called.
Oh, I hear good things.
It is one of those instances, and I can only really think of a couple other times where, to me, the hype, as large as it got, didn't actually oversell the show. It's actually like, oh shit, I think I might have tweeted this. My wife and I binged. We watched 3 episodes in a row. 3 half-hour episodes in a row. I know, we're crazy.
I know.
I'm like, people weren't lying about Ted Lasso. It is people. So Smoke on the Street is that I was hearing was that Ted Lasso is like this show about unbridled optimism in the face of cynicism and despair, and but it's also a show about soccer, and I'm like, it can't be that good. It doesn't sound that interesting when you say it that way, right? But I'm like, it's not like unbridled it's not like childish optimism like you're watching Teletubbies or something like that. It's just that the character of Ted Lasso is this guy that refuses to let other people bring him down, and just that to be so bold in the face of everybody else that's kind of living in misery. Mm-hmm. is kind of weirdly heroic in its own way. So let me tell you the basic premise of the show. It's that, and I don't know all the names quite yet, even though we're almost done with season 1. It takes place in England, and a woman was married to the owner of a football club. Mm-hmm. They get divorced because he's caught cheating on her, and in the divorce, she gets the football team. and she aimed for it because she knew that the football team is the only thing he actually loves. And so in a producer's like twist, she's like, I am taking over this team so I can make it fail, right? And it's not a team that had been doing particularly well, but the first thing she does is fire the general manager, the coach, and to assure failure, she hires this farm league coach that just won a championship of American football from the States, one Ted Lasso, and brings him over to coach this football team with the idea that he knows nothing about soccer, and it'll go down in a blaze of glory, because she doesn't want them to just like whimper and die. She wants them to go down hard. Right. That sounded weird, but the thing is, Ted Lasso gets over here, and he's just like a genuine guy's like go-getter. He's like, we're a team, everybody's part of the team. You're the owner, you're part of the team, so come down, celebrate with us when we, I don't know, had a good practice or something like that. But that's the basic premise. Ted Lasso is a guy that just sees the good side of things. He always has a great quip to combat any negativity, to inspire people that maybe are feeling down, and it's just wholesome. It's absolutely wholesome in the best way, in that it's actually still funny, still very witty and clever, and I think it does a really interesting thing of blending American humor sensibilities or sitcom sensibilities with British sitcom humor and sensibilities, because it does take place in England, but it is an American production. Because this is also another interesting thing. The character existed before the show, where I think the actor's name is Jason Sudeikis. He used to be on SNL. He plays Ted Lasso. He created the character with NBC Sports as like a guy to be in a series of commercials for the channel NBC Sports. And I guess he took that character, like, what if we made a show about it, and then made the most bizarre, off-the-wall, like, a story to tell with that character by being an American football coach sent to coach soccer in England, right? But it works. It's like one of those weird experiments that they seem to be it's the team that they have working on the show seems to be firing on all cylinders, and it's just so much fun to watch. It's a joy to watch the show, and I can't recommend it enough. Even if you're like me, you don't care about soccer, you don't particularly care about Apple TV, and you're not interested in necessarily something that's just that people are saying is overtly wholesome and joy-filled, but it's great. It's a really well-written, well-acted, everything is wonderful about it, and
that is everything I've heard. And I keep, someone who actually has Apple TV or TV Plus, whatever they call it. I keep telling myself, like, I need to finally get to it, because one thing I will actually say about Apple TV Plus is that there's a lot of stuff I have not watched.
Right.
But in general, when I sit down to watch something, like, I'm like, oh, that was all right, or that was good. I really enjoyed For All Mankind. I liked Pachinko. I haven't gotten to see yet, but it's on my list. So I keep getting told I should watch it. But,
oh, right.
It's just the idea that, like, at least for this first couple of years, it feels like Apple they've found some reasonable shows, right?
Well, I'm sure they paid a
lot for it.
They paid a lot of price. I mean, they had that deal with Tom Hanks. I think before Ted Lasso, the only thing I'd seen on Apple TV or Apple Play, again, whatever it's called, Apple's service, have been movies. We watched the
Greyhound. Oh, sorry, I was thinking of the Tom Hanks movie. Sorry.
No. We watched an animated film called Wolfwalkers, which has nothing to do with Tom Hanks. It's by this Irish studio that made The Secret of the Kells and Song of the Sea. And the only way to watch their new movie was on Apple TV Plus. I'm like, well, I guess I'm never watching it. But then I got access to Apple TV Plus or whatever it's called, and have watched it. And it's that movie blew my mind. But then we watched the amazing Tom called Finch, where it's a post-apocalyptic movie where he builds a robot to take care of his dog because he's worried he's dying. Not the dog, but Tom Hanks. And so he wants the robot to take care of the dog. And as sad as it is also a very wholesome, despite being a post-apocalyptic movie, a very wholesome, joy-filled, just wonderful, wonderful experience. And so, like, as far as I'm concerned, even though I haven't watched a lot on the Apple service, it's hit 3. it's hit 3 out of the park. That's not soccer, but you know what I'm saying. It's
right.
Each thing I've watched has been wonderful.
Well, in even if the idea that something isn't the best, like I don't think I've and maybe I haven't. Again, I haven't watched a lot, but like I've never had something where I started it and I'm like, nope, this is bad. You know,
right.
Whereas like I've done that with other services. So I don't know. It's just weird because I know with all these these non-TV people getting into programming. And you know, I have no doubt that this is what we're actually seeing is the collapse of the entertainment industry. But hey, at least there's some good shit to watch.
Right.
Like, I mean, not again. Let's not speak about what the actual the outcome of this is. You know, like what the long term of what happens when these studios that really aren't there to make money on television become the dominant platforms. You know, I don't know.
Right. I mean, well, not to like go off on a slight tangent. It's like I think we could. There's a couple ways this could go. We could see a re-legislation of a law that I think was only recently overturned, where there was a time for many years when movie studios owned theaters.
Oh, right. Well, there's a whole monopoly discussion here.
Yeah, and then a law came around that banned them from doing that. And I think, like I said, it's been recently overturned.
Yeah,
but like
the last 2 years.
Exactly, and so like it's that definitely if it's been done once, right?
Right.
You could also see the rebirth of cable. I just call it internet cable. Where it's like because I've heard people saying like, God, there's so many streaming services. I wish they could just like bundle them all into one kind of package that I could just get from my cable provider. I'm like, it's called cable, my dude.
Well, although the weird thing about it though is that there's still cable. And like I was shocked when I visited my parents last month, and there's not only still cable, like it has commercials. It was just, and that's what my parents watch. I was like, wait, I haven't seen a TV commercial like in real life for so long. I was like, wait, how do you skip this? What is this? You know, no, it's just, I think it's there's definitely a lot of implications, and there's probably a huge discussion that we could have, but not today. But so you liked it. So you're almost into season 1. It's a fun show. Are they on the 3rd season now?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think there's at least 2, and we could do research.
We could, but it's not important. Well, I'm glad that it's it's doing well. And the one thing is, I don't know. We don't know yet what Apple's kind of like take on TV will be. Like, are they trying to long haul shows? We just don't know, right?
Right.
I know For All Mankind was renewed for season 4, and I can't imagine that Ted Lasso won't get renewed forever until it hits a wall.
Right. Which I think the evidence points in that direction, in the sense that it's clear that they heavily invested, like we were talking about before, in creators, and as long as people are watching the shows and and the creators themselves are a high enough profile, they're probably, I can see that, and Apple has enough money, like they could just like do it until you don't want to do it anymore, right?
Right.
And so,
and it really becomes the question of, because they're not, I guarantee you that selling TV Plus subscriptions is not funding this, but how much does it become, but like the idea that people buy more Apple products because like why did I start my Apple TV subscription? Because I bought a thing and it's like, get a year free. And I was like, well, sure, I'll do that. And then when it came to renew, it was like, well, that's a third the price of the other guys,
Right.
So, and I keep buying fucking Apple products. So, Anywho, well, I'm glad that's exciting. You're watching sports again.
You know what? It's always good to come back home
to the sport.
Not really, like to a sport field.
Yeah.
Well, we tried. Dear listeners, we tried. So if you, dear listeners, have any thoughts about the topics we discussed this week, feel free to leave your thoughts as comments on the page for this episode at forallintents.net. You
can also post your comments or engage in conversations with other listeners on our Facebook page.
You can find us on other social media as well, such as Twitter and Instagram, where you can find us at our respective handles. On Twitter, you can find Andrew at Profound Dark, tweeting about tabletop role-playing games. You can find me at Bethel. You can also find us on Instagram, where you can find Andrew at Profound Brick, and me and my work at Bethel Comics.
While you're at our website at forallintents.net, you can take a look at the link in the corner that says YouTube and check out our YouTube page. Or you may already be there because you're listening to our podcast on the YouTubes. If you do, feel free to like and subscribe, or as the kids like to say, ring that bell.
We use 2 tracks of music for our show. One is called Disco Medusi, the other is called District 4, both written and performed by Kevin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod, immortal swordsman, graph paper enthusiast, and musician extraordinaire.
You can find his music at incompetech.filmmusic.io, and that's all licensed under the Creative Commons 4.0 Attribution License.
If you like the show and like to help us out, the best way to do so would be to subscribe to the show using whichever podcasting service you happen to use. What would help us out even more, though, would be to go to the storefront and leaving some sort of review, whether a text review or using the proprietary metric will help spread the word to new potential listeners through the magic of algorithms.
All right, Dan. This was a big week last week.
I
didn't get to talk about it because these episodes, our episode comes out on Friday, and we obviously record it prior to that. But last week on Star Trek Lower Decks, they finally did the crossover no one was expecting, except for people who watched the trailer. The USS Cerritos went to Deep Space Nine.
Oh, okay.
And it was just I want to mention it. They got a few actors from the original Deep Space Nine to come back. Right. They got a lot of feels right.
Good.
And I think my favorite, and it's in the trailers when they pull up and they're like, "Oh, we're Deep Space Nine." It starts playing the Deep Space Nine theme, and the captain like, "Oh, I gotta go do something," and the helm is like, "Well, sir, what do we do?" And Commander Ransom's like, just fly around again. Make it look like we're admiring the pylons, right? So then it just shows them, and then it cuts to them slowly flying around the station as the theme plays, and then the wormhole opens in the background, and it's the opening credits to Deep Space Nine, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Or at least it has that feel. No, it was a real, it's really weird that Lower Decks has become this weird, fusion point for, all things Star Trek, where the other shows are all doing their thing and having, big thoughts and big narratives. And Lower Decks has narratives, but also is the place where everyone comes to visit,
Right.
Started with a few people. And I think Mike McMahon, the creator, even said that, when they did the first season, they weren't sure if they could get away with it. So they did a real light touch. But as it's gone on, now they're in the 3rd season and they're going into the 4th next year. They're like, yeah, we can do this, and people are okay with it. It is fun, and they do it well. That's the other thing. It doesn't feel, So
especially since it's a show made for the Star Trek network. What's the service called?
Paramount
Star Trek
Plus.
Star
Trek Plus. Right. Yeah, Star Trek Plus. Although that's another one where actually I bought it for Star Trek and now I watch other things. So who'd have guessed? But anyway, I just want to say that Deep Space Nine.
And let me throw one last thing in here, if I may steal the spotlight here. The one I thought you were going to say it was the Strange New Worlds crossover, but I think that crossover is actually happening in Strange New Worlds.
It is happening in Strange New Worlds because it is live action, sir.
That's right. Oh, man, I'm excited for that. But starting Tuesday, October 11th, 2022, Long John Chapter 5 starts updating on the website.
Oh!
So after some time, we're going to get new Long John, and I'm excited to share it with the world. So keep an eye out, and next Tuesday, I believe that's what that is. It's exciting. So details to come about the book and pre-order packages and all that fun stuff. But because like Andrew's saying, stuff's real busy for me at my day job right now too, and so trying to juggle that podcast and this comic is that's a lot of time that I don't have. But it's getting there, and like I said, I'm excited to share Chapter 5 with you. We're getting towards the end game of Long John. That's the exciting part, I think, in a lot of ways. So until something new and exciting happens for you, dear listeners, sure. I'm D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And for all intents and purposes,
that was a podcast. Hi, Glenn.
Hey, got a deal for you.
Uh-oh, are you fishing for deals?
I'm fishing for deals.
This is actually real. If this is 3D printed, that's like, wow. Man, the replicator is working.
Also,
like, that's the thing. I don't like the idea of taking virtual things and turning them into physical things. Like, that's like, I have enough crap, you know? So,
but now you have more crap. Dragon crap.
Well,
Dragon craps.
Dragon crap.
All right, you go lay down. I'm going to talk to Dan, okay?
Because you did it once, now I'm going to do it. Although it's not really a sports show, I'm going to talk about Ted Lasso.
It's not Lasso, is it?
What? I couldn't tell from his accent. It was Teodoro Lasso. Excellent. Sounds good. It's a quickie is what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's going to be quick.
That's what she said.